A controversy emerged yesterday where the Huffington Post Washington bureau chief, Ryan Grimm, he's been on this program before, is actually claiming that, in fact, this was a sting or a counter-sting operation to catch James O'Keefe and his network attempting to sow chaos at Trump's inauguration. And anyway, they released a video of this counter-sting that uncovered evidence that James O'Keefe's group is trying to sow chaos at the Trump inaugural, an effort that portrays critics of Trump who march against him as violent fringes. And he claims that the counter sting carried out by the Undercurrent and Americans Take Action, a project of previous target of, in other words, James O'Keefe has infiltrated them before, managed to surreptitiously record elements of O'Keefe's network offering huge sums of money to progressive activists if they would disrupt the ceremony and, quote, put a stop to the inauguration and related proceedings to such a degree that donors to the clandestine effort would turn on a TV and maybe not even see Trump, and so on and so forth. And this is apparently an effort led by Lauren Windsor, sponsored by American Family Voices, and among a group of affiliated groups, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, joining us to respond to all of this is James O'Keefe himself. He is the founder of Project Veritas. So I have the letter from your lawyer in front of me, and so I want to ask you, what do you make of what the Huffington Post charged yesterday about this being a counter sting to your sting as their rationale or excuse for the things you have on tape of them saying?
I mean, I think it's ridiculous. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, when we met with the FBI, they were aware that they were planning the activities to disrupt the inauguration. This supposed countersting had nothing to do with this investigation. It was about another organization, and in that case, our journalist was not even inciting. She was asking questions. We had a dozen different people involved in this investigation. But in this particular case, these guys, these Scott Green is the name of the anti-fascist who was talking about the acid attack in the vent shaft, sent multiple emails after this meeting, CCing all of his crew and our undercover journalist, saying things like, quote, I've included everyone who will be considered need to know, saying things about the specific steps they're taking to do, quote, reconnaissance to accomplish their mission. And if they really were trying to film me, why would they wait a month and after our video was released to say so?
Well, how long after you took this video did they figure out that you had taped them?
We taped the video on December 18th in Washington, and it wasn't until we released the video yesterday that they made any statements about supposedly.
But do you have internal emails that they had sent out to cover up because they figured out that?
No, all the internal emails. I have all of them in front of me. We put out a video today, another installment. All the emails, they don't mention anything about knowing that we're there filming our reporter. Of course, if they were going to turn the tables on me, they would say that in planning.
By the way, it would not surprise me. By the way, this is sort of like covert operations. I mean, we spy on the Russians spy on us, the Chinese spy on us, we spy on them, the Iranians spy on us, we spy on them. It would not shock me in any way that, you have gotten so many people and embarrassed so many people over the years that they would try to counter-sting you. It would not.
But they didn't counter-sting us.
No, I know, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes, so this undercurrent thing is a completely separate group of people. One of our journalists showed up and was asking questions, and then they ambushed her. Because sometimes we do get burned. Sometimes our people do get found out. And in that case, they ambushed us right there and then. But in this case, we did it, and they sent us dozens of emails, CCing our undercover, and then when we released the video, they came up with this ridiculous excuse, which was the biggest CYA ridiculous excuse I've ever seen. And by the way, the FBI and the Secret Service take this so seriously. They had cases of these people in front of us when we met with them. They had their names. Our information was deemed helpful and confirmed some of the intelligence these agencies have already received. Our video I'd like to talk about today shows them literally trying to shut down railroad trains with chains, talking about that type of behavior, which is terrorism.
Well, what we played, it said, and I'll read it, it said, so we figured out the trains pull up, one person's going to lock one end of a chain to an edge, and on the other end of the chain, the end of the car, so on and so forth. Done. It takes 15 seconds, and everyone could leave, and literally it can't go anywhere at that point. It's anchored, and you can use a really thin chain, and you don't need a heavy chain, and it would require like a bolt cutter to undo, basically to shut down that line. And if I were to hit the Metro Center, Gallery Place, and this particular plaza, they're all close enough to walk to, and that's every single line in the city. So they're talking about bridges, and they're talking about, in this particular case, shutting the trains down and basically disrupting. I guess the thing that look, James, I just know over the years you have really, really stung people to the point where their solar plexus hurt. I don't know if people got arrested as a result of your sting operations, but some of them certainly, in my opinion, should have been. And the idea that somebody's going to joke on tape because, quote, they know you infiltrated and play along and come up and concoct this story about using this acid and shutting down, and getting it into the HVAC and shutting down trains and shutting down bridges and all of this stuff, it seems highly unlikely to me. That's my own personal opinion, but, I want to be fair to my audience and bring up what people are saying about it, and our audience will decide on their own. But, as the letter from your lawyer pointed out, that this J20, DC Anti-Fascist Coalition, it sounds to me like they're trying, if they were trying to execute a reverse sting on Project Veritas, why would the FBI Secret Service, members of the DC Metro Police, say to you that they had ongoing intelligence about these individuals and concerns about the very thing that these people are saying on tape?
Yeah, Sean, that's a great point. They would never do such a thing. Like I said, when we get burned or found out, what they immediately do is ambush us. They immediately send emails to each other. We're on all of their emails up to yesterday, up to the point we released the video. I published
What happened when you published that video? What were those emails saying?
Oh, the email said it had Scott Green and Andrew Batcher and Luke Kuhn and other individuals who were in the video were talking about the objective to case the building, done recon on the building to ensure they can do the act, and talk about all these things. They said, Scott Green said, I think I've included everyone who will be considered need to know. There's a video from inside their planning meetings where they're talking about targeting deplorable to their entire group and saying we have a couple things that we're doing that we can't even say in this meeting because it's so secret. So it's what I'm upset about, Sean, is the media, which holds us to this ridiculous, impossible standard that doesn't even make any sense. These people are on videotape. The FBI knows about it. I mean, do their job. The media should call the FBI and get a comment. I don't think they've done that, by the way. I can give them their number, and they can corroborate it. They're probably going to make an arrest. And by the way, another piece of information, the people...
By the way, you were kind enough because I did ask you. You sent over all of these emails, and I'm reading them, and they read as real to me going back to as early as mid-December.
Sean, I called the people who were putting on this inaugural ball on Thursday night, and they said that some of these organizers, Scott Green and the other guy, actually bought tickets. They had purchased tickets, which I don't know how much more evidence you need to get in to do the thing to the HVAC. They're not lying to me. They purchased the actual tickets. They cross-referenced the names of the 1,000 guests who signed up. So it's more of a case of media malpractice. The media is trying to, and by the way, if someone gets hurt, I think the media is complicit in this. I think now the media is becoming, it's almost criminal. They're becoming complicit. If someone actually does get injured because they neglected to publish this information and make this aware and put pressure on law enforcement, ask law enforcement for comment, and they try to put chains on trains, and they said they're going to punch people in the throat in the video we just released, which is an assault.
All these years, James, you've been right. All these years, you have stung a lot of people, and even if this bizarre story that they're writing about in the Huffington Post ended up being true, it wouldn't matter to me. It would just mean, okay, it doesn't matter, because if whether or not somebody said it in jest, and I'm having a hard time digesting why they would do that, how that would happen, how the emails go back so far. What is the tape that they have on you, supposedly? Do you know?
They have a tape where one of our people got compromised a number of weeks ago looking into a different group. We're releasing a video tomorrow on that. Has nothing to do with this. It was a separate event where one of our reporters was asking a question. They realized she never incited any violence. She was just asking, what do you guys plan to do? And they immediately jumped out with camcorders and said, you work for Project Veritas. Has nothing to do with this.
So this is separate and apart. So the Huffington Post, you're saying, got it wrong.
Yeah,
100% wrong.
Well, 100% wrong. And by the way, look at the video. There's nothing in the video. She says, what do you guys plan to do?
All right, stay right there, James. We have a couple more minutes left. We'll hold it over for you. We'll get back. James O'Keefe, Project Veritas, and this story gets deeper and deeper every day. But I would say this: if we don't err on the side of caution and realize that some of these leftist snowflakes can be violent and want to disrupt at this high level, we'd be foolish. That's all. And whether it's on tape or not, I just think that the incendiary language that is being used on a daily basis is way over the top. And even the Secret Service has said that this is unlike any other inauguration in terms of keeping people safe and secure.
It's 104.5 WOKV.
All right, as we continue with James O'Keefe, he is the founder of Project Veritas, and his latest sting operation shows that you have these leftists planning to disrupt the inauguration and the inaugural balls and to attack bridges and even the Metro Railway. We have some at the Huffington Post and others saying, oh, we executed a reverse sting on Project Veritas. Well, let me go back to the issue here. What if you're right, and what indication do you have that when you met with the FBI, Secret Service, and Metro DC Police, were they taking it seriously?
Well, my lawyer met with them. First of all, we called we called them, we showed them the tapes, and they called us back immediately. The agents we visited already knew about the individuals we named the video. A guy named Legba was talking about putting chains on railroad tracks. These are things that we listened to. We did not incite. We did not, in these planning meetings, we did not bring this up. These are things they were describing amongst themselves that we were recording. The agents were aware of Legba, Carafor, Luke Kuhn, and were aware that they were planning these activities to disrupt the inauguration events, and they said that our information, quote, confirmed some of the intelligence these agents had already received. So our meeting with the Joint Task Force lasted 2 hours, and then these anti-fascist coalition of Disrupt J20 sent us email after email after email CCing our undercover journalists about their plans, never once ever indicating that they were trying to reverse sting us. So I trust the FBI over the Huffington Post.
Yeah, well, look, you've been right so many times. As I've said to you earlier, and I think it annoyed you, it was not meant to annoy you. You know, with all your success, it would not shock me at some point that you get counter-stinged. And I just think that's the way espionage works, and on a different level, this would be the same thing. It's like a sword and a shield. You know, it's, strategic defense to stop ballistic missiles. It's Patriot missile system. So, and what they have, for example, set up in Israel, which I saw on, with my own eyes. But with that said, at the end of the day, there are anarchists. There are people. There are meetings. These things were said. And unless there's proof, positive evidence that they did counter-sting you, I think the only prudent, responsible thing to do is assume these people mean what they say. And you're pointing out that this is an entirely different tape from an entirely different operation, and it is not even connected to this, that they're saying, oh, we got Project Veritas.
No, sometimes our people get burned. The reporter Allison in the video has been burned 4 times in 1 year. She's the young woman who went undercover she goes undercover almost every day, and she changes her look and changes her name. That was a separate group, not involving this anti-fascist group. Of course, they're all left-wing, but no, that was a separate encounter with a separate individual, and she never incited anything. But like I said, they actually bought tickets to this inaugural event, and they bought them in the name of some of the people that we encountered.
Well, I'm running out of time here. Let me ask this question. If I invited this Huffington Post guy on with you tomorrow, would you do the show with him?
I would love that. I would do anything to speak to these guys. The media won't have me on, Sean, because the more true it gets, the worse it gets. So,
well, look, you know what? Maybe one time it's going to be true that it's something wrong, but you've been right a lot of times, and I think that this is so serious, we've got to examine if there's any possibility of truth here for the protection of everybody, and everybody needs to know that there are radical snowflakes out there that would commit acts of violence. It's just a fact. And it's like everything else involving terrorism. It's better to say something and be wrong. Anyway, that's my opinion. But I've got to run.
Come on. I would love to come on with the Huffington Post guy.
All right, you got it. We'll try and work that out for tomorrow. James O'Keefe, Project Veritas.